What's up, y'all? This is Brandon. They call me Legacy, and I want to share with you my story about how I came to Christ and also how I came to Crossover. I was born in Buffalo, New York, and I lived up there until I was 14 years old. I come from kind of a chaotic home. Both my parents were divorced previously before I was born, and I have an older brother and a younger sister. And so there's lots of turmoil. My father was an alcoholic for several years, a number of years actually, and a Vietnam vet. And so there was always some strife through that, a very interesting dynamic. And so as the economy went down up in Buffalo, my father began to look for opportunities to start fresh. And so we sold our house, and when I was 14, my family, we all moved down to the Tampa Bay area. We first were in Town and Country for a little bit, and then we ended up in Brooksville. And so Brooksville was a place that I was for a while, and I actually experienced quite a culture shock coming from the north, and the weather, the season changes, a lot more cultural diversity. Although Buffalo was considered one of the more racially divided cities in the north, I still had a lot of exposure to a lot of different cultures and ethnicities. And so we moved to Brooksville, and it was basically like black and white, and you hung out with who you hung out with, and that was some challenging times. And I was really starting to seek God before I left. And when I moved there, I felt really isolated and kind of alone, and didn't really have a lot of friends. And so I kind of became very introverted in a lot of ways. About 6 months into it, I finally met some friends and started hanging out. And they were partying and things of that nature, and I really wasn't into it. But with some peer pressure and whatnot, I really wanted to fit in. I started drinking and smoking weed and doing a lot of different things and partying. And so I never was a thug or a gangster, and I never would claim or anything like that. But I really made a lot of choices due to those circumstances. And so I found myself failing 8th grade, failed 9th grade twice. I was always skipping school, getting into fights, getting kicked out of school, very rebellious, and started getting very angry towards my parents. And I was really just going nowhere, and became suicidal. And so one night I was out partying, and the Lord just touched me. I knew that there was a purpose and a plan for my life, and I knew that God was real. I believed that God was real, the Bible was real, and that Jesus Christ, was the only way. And I said all these things, but the life that I lived denied that. The life that I was living denied that He was real and that He was the Lord. And I had an experience that I would consider very radical, and I would also consider very real and authentic. Where I saw my life, and I wanted it to have an eternal impact. I realized my name Legacy. People think that it means something, but at this point, I realized my life meant very little, and that if I was to die, people would remember me for the person that I was, not the person that I wanted to be. And like I said, I knew God had a plan for my life, so I called out to Him and I said, God, whatever it is that You have for my life, whatever You want, I repent of my sin. I know I need You, and I knew this at a very young age, and so I'll do whatever You want. And I committed myself to Christ. I committed myself to reading His Word, following Him, and trying to be the best Christian that I could possibly be. And started going to church, and began to learn the Bible and these things, and eventually went to Bible college, and became involved in ministry, urban ministry. And while I was there, I was doing some research on urban ministries and the unique dynamics of doing hip-hop in ministry. And so I came across an article about crossover in a magazine called Charisma, and in it described what Pastor Tommy Cologne was doing at Crossover when he was a youth pastor. And so when I graduated, I came and I visited, and Pastor Tommy invited me to become a part of Crossover and to intern and learn about it. And so I spent several years here just learning and just doing and just trying to be involved. And I made a lot of bumps and bruises and mistakes along the way, man, but I learned a lot of stuff about ministry. And all that being said, man, I also met my wife here. My wife Pam, I met her at Crossover, and she was also called to ministry, and she was doing urban ministry, and we got together, and God brought us together. And that's one thing that I can say about Crossover, is that God used crossover in my life to bring me my wife, my better half, and that may or may not be for you. But at the same point in time, I'm just grateful for being here, and I'm looking forward to whatever it is that God has. The church is growing and moving, and things are happening, and people are beginning to realize how good God is. And if that's all I could share is, man, God's a good God, and He's got plans for us, and they're not plans to harm us or to destroy us.